So we were discussing menstruation cycle, the basic like intro and everything, like basic was done. So I'm sure it would be clear. We discussed start from the puberty, which is the age when they become mature, at the age of 13 years. Brain send message to gonadotropin releasing hormone to like pituitary. They release LH, FSH, which then brain control everything. So we have basic info. Pre-ovary, which have 60 to 80,000 when they are like immature eggs. They get mature when follicle plus egg form, so they become mature when follicle also release estrogen hormone, and alternate ovary is going to be released this basic info. So I'm sure then uterus have three lining: perimetrium, myometrium, and endometrium. Perimetrium, which is the outer one, middle one is the myometrium, which have muscles and everything like that. Then endometrium, which is the innermost layer. So I'm sure it's clear to you. So during the menstruation cycle, what would be the changes? You'll see the basic change. So the breakdown of this innermost layer, which is this one, breakdown myometrium, which will remain same, right? The breakdown of endometrium will take place, so this means blood will come out of the body. I've just given you summary of the first part, which is this one. If I explain you this one, so yes, we were done. Menstruation cycle, which is complex and these all processes, hormonal changes, and normally the cycle get completely, like cycle get repetition 28 days, then 28 days, and like this continuous cycle. This may varies. Normally we take calculation and everything like 1 to 5 days, but it can also vary, because 28 days is the not permanent, but it's like most it's like our months get complete. As we have February, we all know we have only 28 days, so cycle gets complete during 28 days. Otherwise it can vary as well. So I'm sure it will be very much clear. Otherwise I would suggest you to watch that previous video than that. But still, if you know don't, menstruation cycle is done and I've given you an overview. Here comes the second phase, which is menstruation phase. What will happen during the day 1 to 5? So let's see. Menstruation, which start with the bleeding in the discharge of a blood and debris of this discard tissue of the uterus through vagina. So as I mentioned, our endometrium, which is going to break, and the blood will pass throughout, what it will pass through the vagina. So I'm sure it will be clear to you. Then become menstruation take place, where the body become aware chemically no fertilization, no pregnancy has occurred following. So what you'll see, the menstruation cycle simply happen when there's no fertilization, no sperm or anything have been fused to female body. So this means menstruation cycle simply take place when no fertilization or no pregnancy, something like that happen. So I'm sure it will be clear. So this means it's showing, it's an act that there is no fertilization, right? The progesterone secretion is stopped by corpus luteum, and as a result, soft sponge vascular lining of uterus called endometrium breaks off and start flowing along with the blood, as I mentioned, out of vagina in the form of menstruation flow. The first day of menstruation flow is taken as the beginning of menstruation cycle. The stage lasts about 5 days and extend from day 1 to 5. This the same menstruation phase is exactly the same. Simply it was menstruation cycle, which was an overview how it does happen. I basically explain you menstruation phase from 1 to 5 days. It's simply bleeding. How will that happen? That will happen by the breakdown of endometrium, which is the innermost layer, and it will take from 1 to 5 days. And the first day of menstruation flow, which is also called as the beginning of the menstruation cycle, because of course beginning means the starting, so it's like first day, which means the starting. Then the stage lasts up to 1 to 5 days. I'm sure it will be clear. So here comes another part, which is proliferative or pre-ovulatory phase. Let's see what's here. During the initial days of the menstruation cycle, the increase in follicle stimulating hormone FSH leads to stimulation of a few ovarian follicles. So this is quite important MCQ than something. If I just write it over here. So if I simply write it, at moderate level, estrogen give negative feedback to estrogen give negative feedback to LH and FSH. So I'm sure it will be clear. And what you'll see, progesterone, which like these are at very high level, it start to give feedback, and these all, which I'll discuss you later on. So during the initial days, menstruation, oh god. So during initial days menstruation cycle, there would be increase in follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle engage in competitive process to establish dominance, and follicle accept sees eventually distinguished through a process known as follicle STI. Meanwhile, these all things will happen. So let's see. I'm sure it would not be clear. So what you'll see, first thing we already know that we have primary follicle, which is the first part. After primary follicle get divided into second part, which is secondary follicle. Then comes the third one, which is like the tertiary follicle. Tertiary follicle, like the name says, it's going decreasing, so it might not have good importance, but yes, you are wrong here. Tertiary have one kind of fluid, that fluid called as antrium, that have also a major function. Like they have fluid, this means they provide lubrication. These all after tertiary you will see graphian follicle basically. But if I just mention you, after graphical follicle is present, and after that you will see so many corpus uterus, corpus luteum, and after corpus luteum you will see corpus callus, and then the cycle would be again repetitive, corpus antrium, these all things. So I'm sure it would be clear. So this means basically I was supposed to explain you the cycle as like primary follicle, then secondary, then tertiary. And yes, you might be noticing this is grain ovule, like ovule middle, and near that we have follicles. Follicle size become increasing as the number increase. Here also that it increase, and here as well. So then the Graphian follicle was simply name given by the scientist name. So I'm sure it will be clear here. And this sperm gets separated. After that, what will happen? You'll see. After this, increased concentration of LH cause rupture of Graphian follicle called LH surge. So LH surge is simply when Graphian follicle, which is going to be disturbed, and this inside material will come out. This means release of ovum. And yes, one more term you will see. So release of ovum is also called as ovulation. This is another term you'll see here is mentioned. So let's see more what's written more. You'll see release of ovum would be called ovulation. So why will that happen? When increase of concentration LH cause rupture. So when during the rupture they become half, and this all will happen like release. And yes, they will also release progesterone as the number LH increase. So release of ovum called ovulation. I'm sure it will be clear. Then what they will do, they will be regressing corpus luteum, which is another part, which is also called as luteal phase or secrete phase, which the last like from 15 to 28 days during that cycle. So then the cycle repeats and will go to the first part. So I'm sure it's like indirectly I've explained you like entire, not indirectly, but of course I've explained you the entire process. I'm sure it will be clear. So let's see what's written more. So here FSH also includes the Graafian follicles to produce estrogen, lining of the uterus known as endometrium. As a result, the endometrium become lush, thick and well supplied with the blood vessels. Ordinary cervical dense and adhesive, increasing level of estrogen, which cord become more fluid and transparent, forming pathway assist the movement of a sperm through these, and estrogen forms negative feedback on FSH. I'm sure it will be clear. Then comes the towards the end of the prophetic stage, LH is released from the anterior, and LH converts to rupture into yellow. And yes, this ruptured follicle is yellowish and glandular mass, which is known as corpus luteum. So corpus luteum, I am sure there would be picture or something. Maybe I'm not added. Yes, here comes the corpus luteum, which is simply they become ruptured, so there will be yellowish kind material that's called as corpus luteum. So I'm sure it will be clear. Then comes the secretory post-ovulatory phase, which is day 15 to 28. Let's give an overview. Otherwise, I'll come with another last video for menstruation cycle, which would be entire overview of everything we have studied about this topic. So I would suggest you to watch that. So let's see the security phase, which is also known as post-ovulatory phase, and the third phase of menstruation cycle. Follow the proliferative phase or follicular phase, simply follicle increase and this all. So these all occur after ovulation has taken place. So secondary phase is primarily regulated by hormone, which is progesterone, which is produced by the corpus luteum, a temporary structure formed the ovary release of an egg. So I'm sure it will be clear. Let's see what's more. During this phase, lining of uterus, endometrium thickness, possible pregnancy, progesterone, these all things. If fertilization and inflammation do not occur, leading to declined progesterone levels, this drop in hormone level causes endometrium to start breaking down, leading to start of menstruation period at the beginning of new menstruation. This means if there's no pregnancy, no fertilization, so our brain will simply send message to start after like this whole cycle will complete in 28 days and will repeat this entire cycle again. So as I mentioned before as well, normally this can also be varies, but normally this the same, but it can also varies in few cases. What you'll see, ovulation phase first thing, then follicle phase, this means going to increase, then menstruation, then the okay, sorry, menstruation is the first part where the bleeding and everything is started, then follicular phase is the first part, then ovulation phase, and after that the luteal phase is the last part. So I'm sure it will be clear. Then we'll just come with another video for the explanation of this entire. So I'm sure it will be clear. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.